We are.
All righty. Well, thank you. Well, normally I give a little introduction about upcoming events for Zoom. So I'm going to do that first and get that out of the way, and then we'll start the program on the 3011 line. Next month, the program is on silver decorations applied to Cambridge glass. That would be companies that purchased Cambridge glass and took the glass to a separate site where all they did was decorate the glass. And Les Hansen has volunteered to do that. And I know that's going to be a really interesting program because it's one of those things that not everyone knows as much about because it's outside the Cambridge Glass Company. And then in May, we're going to have a program on smoking items. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget, a lot of us are going to be heading to Cambridge in the next couple of days for the March auction. So I hope to see a lot of you in Cambridge this weekend. Well, the 3011 line, we often call it the nude stem line, is, I would say I'm not a nude stem collector, but then as I walk around the house, there are a few here or there located in my cases. And I've often found them interesting because anytime there's a limited number of items, it's always kind of neat to try to figure out, well, how many are there out there? And a group of us got together, Jack, what was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and put together the best that we knew of, a listing of all the nude stems and all the colors they were produced in. So that's a wonderful resource that I believe was in the November 2020 crystal ball, and it also can be accessed on the MSVG website under tables and graphs. And so it's a really great tool to see what items were actually produced. Well, the year was 1931. So many years ago. The country was not in the greatest position, but as many of us say, the Cambridge Glass Company was really coming into its own in the early 1930s. At that time, minimum wage was 25 cents. Gasoline was 17 cents per gallon, and the average household wage was about $1,850. So to just kind of give you a perspective on what it was like living in the United States at that time. Well, in 1931, Cambridge first introduced the 3011 stem line. And in that first publication, they introduced 6 specific items. They introduced the banquet goblet, the table goblet, the tall sherbet, the cocktail, which we now refer to as the claret, the cup comport, and the flared comport. And in the 1931 catalog, which is part of what we call the 1930 to 1934 catalog, those 6 items were shown etched either apple blossom or Gloria. And I have an example of one of those items. This is the banquet goblet on the taller stem, and it does have the Gloria etching on it. Don't want to do anything to that stem. In later years, the 3011 stem line was renamed to the figure stem line. It's also known as the Statuesque line. And in later years, it was called the lady figure line. So the name of that stem line progressed. It kind of stayed the same, but I never found any documentation that was ever called the nude stem line, which is what most collectors refer to the 3011 stem line as. In 1932, there was a circular letter stating that the nude stems, or the statuesque line, was being produced in royal blue, forest green, amber, amethyst, gold crystal, and crystal. But that particular circular letter does not indicate which stems were available. So it could have been the original 6, or they could have started adding in 1932 some additional stems to that line. In a 1933 circular letter, it does note that the table goblet, tall sherbet, cocktail, cup comport, cigarette box, ashtray, and candlestick with bobochet and prisms was available. I found that particular circulator somewhat interesting because the average drinking vessel was selling for somewhere between $1.25 and $2 per stem. But they also noted that the candelabra with prisms, and that would be this one right here, Cambridge did not make their own prisms. They bought those. These were selling for $10 a pair. So in comparison to a drinking vessel that was between $1.25 and $2, a pair of these candelabras at that time would have cost $10, which when minimum wage was 25 cents, that's a lot of money. In today's dollars, that would have been over $300. And another item that they mentioned at that time, which I thought was kind of cool, and I didn't realize this, but Crown Tuscan came as a premium color. If you look in those catalogs, I guess I need to get that back here a little bit. The Crown Tuscan was always a little bit more expensive, not as expensive as Carmen, but it was more expensive than Royal Blue and Forest Green and Amethyst. This one happens to have gold encrusted Portia on it. And a pair of these were selling for $17.50 a pair in 1932 or 1930.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take a couple of pairs of those for $10.
Yeah, me too. David, we lost you somewhere.
Julie, I think somebody cut him off for saying he doesn't have any nudes.
I don't know. He's just all of a sudden gone.
I'd just like to point out that the last person he was seen with was Portia.
That's
right.
true. Sounds like something we should be talking about at convention.
He's not a nude collector.
I know he's not, but he
Yeah,
seems
well,
to have an awful lot of nudes.
He just reeled out some pretty big nudes.
Well, that's what I was thinking. And this is a guy that doesn't collect them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's what we all say. Oh, no, I don't collect that. And all of a sudden it shows up in your collection magically. Well, I had my phone right by me. Maybe someone can text him and let him know he's talking to himself.
I think Les is on the case.
All right. I had my phone right here and I moved it.
Yeah.
I think what happened was everybody was calling in orders at those prices,
Yes.
but David to take to the factory, so.
The call center overloaded.
It's kind of like QVC, only different. I would like to put my order in for a, nude stems with Bobaches, please.
Yeah. Yeah, and just remember, all things are relative. It doesn't take much to make a collection of something.
He was embarrassed and dropped out. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, let me see if we have him coming back here. I still don't see him. Okay.
Maybe a train hit his house.
Yeah, true. Well, he's in Columbus. He's pretty sheltered.
Les, were you able to reach him?
You're muted.
You're on mute, Les.
I both texted and tried calling, but I'm sure he's got his phone off.
Oh, he
Okay.
probably does. And he's probably wondering, how come no one's asking me any questions right now? I don't know. I just have his cell phone. I don't have a.
Try to text him rather than calling.
Yeah, I think he did.
He may even have his phone off.
That's true.
Yeah, he's probably just trying to figure out what the heck happened.
Yeah, he might be trying to reconnect.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's you can
You want to
just,
start some show and tell till he gets here?
we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, until he gets back, we'll do things a little Was this stem with Gloria on Forest Green? We have a question.
Yes, it was.
Okay, let me,
Does that work? Patterns.
let's just see if he joined again real quickly. Yeah, I do not see him. Too bad we don't know his neighbor to go knock on his door. Interview Julie's cat for entertainment. Which one would you like to interview? I have several.
Oh, Lord.
They all have stories. And they like some of the Cambridge glass, but not all of it. So I will do this for now. I'm going to share my screen and we will show some of the photographs that I have. That way, when David comes back, we'll have him join us.
He says he's logging back in right
Oh,
now.
okay. Well, then I won't show the photos. We'll wait till he gets back.
Julie,
the
you might
one-
want to mute everybody too.
Yes, I will, once everybody gets back.
Yeah, we don't seem to have the echo this time, so.
No, well, I think if I have everybody muted, you won't hear it.
Hmm.
So he's probably logging back in.
She's learned a lot through these.
Yes, I have. I've learned how to mute everybody. I'm getting better at presenting with photographs. It's taken a little while, only 18 months now, but I finally got it figured out.
Good job.
Yeah. Now see, you guys have it right. You're drinking wine and having this Zoom. See, that's the way to do it. We should really have, I keep telling everybody, we just need to have a social cocktail party. Everybody bring their favorite stem and we'll just do it on Zoom and socialize, which is always a good thing.
And we're in South Carolina instead of Connecticut.
Our Cambridge stems are in Connecticut.
Oh, well, you got to leave some of them behind every now and then. Let's see if he got back on. Oh, I still don't see him back on. Oh, the Chamberlains are here. Nice. Okay, who else? Well, I still don't see him. He must have a
Yeah.
connection issue.
Yeah,
Instead of wine, I'm having a little blended whiskey.
Oh, well,
well,
we talk about all of our vices then.
his picture froze for us, and then it vanished.
Oh, he just vanished for me. He just was poof. Well, I still don't see him on, so we'll give him a second, and if not, we'll switch over to some pictures while we wait for him to reconnect. So,
I'm here.
oh, there he is. Okay.
I don't know what happened, but I looked down and my face was frozen and it just, sometimes my computer, when something like that happens, it takes a minute. So
Okay, well, we're gonna mute everyone again, and then we'll let you pick up where you left off. In the meantime, everybody wants to know how we order the stems and the candelabras and everything from you. We figured it was a QVC issue.
all right, well, I'll see what I can do.
Let me mute everybody. Okay, David, you'll have to unmute again.
I'm not exactly sure where I went frozen, but I'm going to pick up where I think I may have left off, where I started to say in 1934, Cambridge published 22, a photo of 22 different 3011 statuesque stems available for purchase. Also at that time, they had available 3 Crown Tuscan 3011 pieces that came with an ebony foot. Now this is a glass ebony foot. I've seen a couple ashtrays where the foot was enamel painted, but they indicate in the catalog that the ashtray, the short cigarette box, and the cup or the flared comport came with an ebony stem. Also, Cambridge made available some Crown Tuscan cocktails at that time with colored bowls. And I found it funny reading in one of the circular letters that said, these are very popular, especially the ones with the gold crystal bowl. Well, clearly they were very, very popular. But as a collector, you're like, the gold Cristal bowl, why weren't the royal blue ones or the Carmen ones or the amethyst or forest green equally as popular? But as collectors know, the gold Cristal ones are out there, and clearly they were wonderful sellers. Also around the same time, they added in the crystal shell line, as well as the seashell line, a tall and short comport. Now, from my research for this evening's program, the crystal shell pieces were truly crystal. And from the photos that I could see in the 35, 37 catalog, they did not possess the shell detailing like the comports that were part of the seashell line. So that might be a way to distinguish between crystal shell, where it is the shell comport, but no shell detailing, where the seashell line did have the shell detailing. To confuse the issue, they made the crystal comports both ways, with and without shell detailing. The Crown Tuscan shell comports always come with the shell detailing, and the tall Windsor blue comport does always come with the shell detailing. So they were all part of the seashell line. So I believe, and I think I could probably back that up, is that the crystal shell ones are crystal and they do not possess the shell detailing. Now, we're not exactly sure when the topaz nude stems and the heather bloom nude stems were produced. We know when those colors were made. We believe they had to be fairly early in the production years, definitely in the 1930s. But other than a photograph that Les Hansen pointed out to me in the 35, 37 catalog, where one item is listed as being available in heather bloom, no other documentation is noted where those items were made in heather bloom or topaz. And the heather bloom must have been fairly popular, because I would not say that the heather bloom brandy or the heather bloom claret or the champagne or goblet, for that matter, are all that difficult to find. The banquet goblet is a little trickier, and the comport can be a little bit tricky. So by 1949, the war has ended. Cambridge is still in business, but their line has been depleted significantly. And by 1949, they were only making 3 different size 3011 stems: the brandy, the cocktail, and the tall shell comport from the seashell line. So they had really limited the number of 3011 stems that they were making, and the colors they were producing it in was much more limited at that time. One thing that collectors often discuss is the stems were available with a satin stem, where they would frost just the nude itself. And during that time, from 1945 to 1954, they changed that a little bit, and they were satinizing the lady's stem as well as the foot. So if you find a nude stem out there, it would have to likely be a brandy or a cocktail, and the stem is satin finished as well as the foot. You know it was probably produced between 1949 and 1954. Then came the reopen period from 55 to 58. Surprisingly, the company really invigorated its production and reintroduced the ivy ball to the line, the table goblet, the tall sherbet, the cocktail, the brandy, and the ashtray. In addition, they added in what we refer to as the tall cocktail, and that is a cocktail that was made on the medium-sized stem. So as you can see, these are 2 cocktails, but one is about a ½ an inch or so taller than the other. And that's because the stem that was used on this cocktail is the medium stem, and the stem used on this cocktail is the shorter, or the shortest stem that Cambridge used to produce the 3011 line. Also, they introduced a cupped comport, and that cupped comport would typically be produced on the tall stem, but they produced it only on the medium-sized stem. So you can find those out there as well. So you can add those to your collection. Now, during the reopened years, the glass was produced in pistachio, pink, mandarin gold, smoke, carmine, and moonlight. So those make for some fun additions to your collection as well. And during the reopen period, they added something really cool to the nude stems, and that is the crackle finish. Here is a mandarin gold table goblet. And as you can see, the bowl has been crackled. We did a program on crackle earlier, and I have a hunch that this process of crackling this glass was quite difficult. So but strangely enough, I don't believe there was any significant price increase in the crackle decoration at this time. So, and another example is a smoke cocktail. You can see the crackling maybe a little bit easier in that stem. Now, strangely, the only crackle stem or color during the reopen period that they put the crackle on the shorter nude is the smoke one. So I think there's a little bit of question on what was going on. If you have a shorter nude stem from the reopened years, if you want a crackled one, at this point, we only know of them being made in smoke. They are also made in the taller stem in crackle as well. But for some reason, the smoke one is the only one they put the crackle decoration on the shorter stems. Nude stems were made with came with various etchings, and those include Gloria, Lorna, Chintz, Apple Blossom, Diane, Portia, Rose Point, Candlelight. The Candlelight was more expensive. It came with what I call the Spiderweb D107/8 decoration. And they also came with the Rock Crystal 611 cutting. And because the rock crystal department was a separate, or I should say the cutting department was a separate company adjacent to the factory, placing the cutting on the glass nearly doubled the price of the item. And it showed that the full line of stems were available in the 611 cutting, although I've only seen maybe 4 or 5 of the different drinking vessels with that cutting, including the cupped and the flared comport. One thing that Les Hansen and I have talked about a couple times recently, and I wanted to share this with everyone this evening, is when you're buying online, you really do want to know what item you're purchasing. And there are a couple items that can be a little bit tricky to tell from a photograph if there's no frame of reference or possibly a measurement to the item given in the description. One of those is the cocktail, which I had up here earlier. On the shorter stem that was used to make the cocktail, if you look at the left arm, that would be her arm on this side. Try to hold that up so you can see it a little bit better. The opening in her arm, you got to be a little bit imaginative, but it makes a pretty nice triangle, 3 sides. Yes, it might not be a perfect triangle, but for the most part, you would say that is triangular shape. So on the smaller stem, which measures 3 3/4 inches tall, the gap in the left arm essentially forms a triangle. Well, the taller cocktail typically sells for a little bit more money. It's a little harder to find. So if you're not sure if you're buying the tall cocktail or the shorter cocktail, on the medium stem, which we call the tall cocktail, if you look at the gap in her left arm, and again, you got to be a little bit creative, it almost makes a perfect square. I mean, her head is kind of in there that kind of indents the square a little bit, but if you look at her arms, pretty much a right angle, you can think of that as pretty much a square. The tallest stem, which is like candlesticks and banquet goblets, comports, if you look at her left arm and you look at the arm dimensions itself, from her shoulder to her elbow is much significantly longer than from her elbow to her wrist. So we say that would form more of a rectangular opening as opposed to a square or triangular opening. So when if you're bidding at something online or you only have a photograph and you're trying to identify it, looking at that left arm and knowing whether it's a triangle, that would be the shortest stem, 3 3/4 inches. If it's a square, like this one was, you know it's the medium stem, 4 3/4 inches. Or if it's on the tallest stem, you know it's the taller stem, and this would be measuring almost 6 inches tall. This one, it was about 5. Trick, if you're looking at bidding online or looking at photographs, you can tell whether you're buying the table goblet or the banquet goblet. They have the same bowl, but they're off by about an inch in height. Or if you're buying the taller stem cocktail versus the shorter stem cocktail, because having bought on eBay and sold on eBay for more than 20 years, not every listing is accurate. Not everyone knows how to measure using a ruler. So sometimes they'll give you measurements that are inaccurate. And when you get the item in the mail, you're like, well, that didn't measure 7 inches. That's only 5.5. And you're thinking to yourself, well, how did that possibly happen? But those types of things do happen. Well, are there any questions for me at this point? Because that's all I have for the program. I am going to show a couple more items before we head out and do our Zoom and Tell portion. So if there are any questions, I'll take those first. And then,
David,
yes.
how do you tell the original Carmen stems from the reopen period Carmens?
Well, there's a couple ways, and I can answer your question a couple different ways. If the top of the bowl looks like this, it's not from the reopen period. But the items that were made during the reopen period in Carmen would only be the goblet, the champagne, and the cocktail on the tall stem. What am I saying here? They would all be made in Carmen. I don't need to go down that list again. I don't know that you can really tell, like on the ashtray or the table goblet with the champagne, whether the Carmen is from the 30s or from the 50s.
Hey, David, do we want to mention charcoal tonight?
Well, we could talk about charcoal. Larry, why don't you take a second, and when we get, well, if you want to say it now, why don't you go ahead and say that and then we'll come back.
Well, we don't have this nailed down yet, but we're doing invoices, as a lot of you know, and we have had several instances that list the new color, that we've known about it before a little bit, but it's more official now, charcoal. And it did appear on one of the nude stems, and that's the ivy ball. So if you see an ivy ball that you think is a little different looking smoke, it may possibly be charcoal. We'll be working on trying to get a more definitive description of this color in the future. But the only thing, like I said, in the 3011 line is the ivy ball, thus far anyway.
Thanks, Larry.
David,
Yes.
what colors does the actual nude come in? How many different colors are there?
Actual nude. Well, the most predominant on the, I want to say the drinking vessels, it's typically with a colored bowl and a crystal stem. They did make a run or a line of cocktails only, where the stem is Crown Tuscan and the foot, and the bowl is a color, forest green, amethyst, royal blue. They also made, for a short run, and I don't know how long it was made, they made the ebony, what we call the ebony stem cocktail, with ebony stem and foot and just the ebony stem. I know in the 1949 to 1954 area, I think they were making, that's when they were making the ebony stemmed cocktail. I would assume that the ebony stem and foot came before that. The comports, the flared comport came with a Crown Tuscan stem. The nude candlesticks came with, could be in Windsor blue or a Crown Tuscan. And Imperial made a nude stem where the stem was like a light amber in color. And in the case to my left, I have a couple stems, nude cocktails where the stem is actually like a forest green or an emerald green color. If I missed anything, somebody please let me know. So typically the stem would be crystal.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
David, this is Julie.
Yeah.
I know that you mentioned several of the items that were made in with the statuesque. When was the sweetmeat made? What period?
Well, the sweetmeat was one of those items that first appeared in 1934. It's shown in the 1934 catalog. It's in a 1940 price list, so it lasted until 1940. I believe it was likely one of the many of the 3011 stems that stopped production during the war. Because by 1940s, late 40s, there was only the 3 or 4 nude stems still in production.
Okay, thank you.
They did not make enough of those, though. They're too hard to find. Any other questions? A couple of items that I personally collect that I like in the nude stems. One of them is the mint dish. And I'm still looking for a green one. And I know they're really tricky to find, but I just think they're such a cool shape and they're just really neat, and you can't get too many of those. Those are kind of fun. I also collect the blown comports. So this is a blown comport, but I prefer them when they have the lid on them. And then they had a different name for this item. This is referred to as the covered candy box. So this is one item, the comport, and then when you put the lid on it, it becomes the covered candy box. For some items, the lid is easier to find. For other items, the comport is easier to find for some reason. The final item I'm going to share is kind of a novelty item. A handful of these have shown up over the years. It's all crystal, but as you notice, the bowl is a shape that we're not very familiar with. There's no information about the production of this stem at all. There is a nice little gap in the numbering of the nude stems, and there's been speculation that this may have been a prototype that did not go into full production, but I'm not 100% sold on that either. But it does have the true Cambridge nude from the Cambridge mold. We just don't have any idea of what item this is, or could it be another company that possessed the Cambridge molds at one time that tried to make this, and that might be Imperial. We don't have any, I don't know if we have any records of that because there's so many of them made, it likely never made it into full production. And we've only ever seen a handful of these, and they're always crystal bowl, crystal stem, and crystal foots, but kind of a fun novelty item to have some fun conversations about. All right,
David.
I'm finished.
David, I don't see how that cannot be Cambridge.
Well, there are some nuances, I think, with the foot.
If you look at the foot, the glass glob at the bottom, it just says Cambridge written all over it. And I do like the theory of the missing number.
That is a fun theory. The connection of the stem to the bowl is a little bit different than the connection in most of the other items. I don't know. You'd have to kind of look at it and speculate. My stem, the lady herself, is actually a little bit. It's not fire polished like the foot is. So something tells me that there may have been a little bit of issue coming out of the mold, but it's definitely a fun novelty item. It's definitely from a Cambridge mold. I just don't know exactly what the options are, and I'm not saying it's one or the other, but it does look a little bit different to me than the traditional nude stem and how it was made.
I like the shape.
David, how's the bowl compare to the Sauterne?
This is, I would say, at least an ounce or so more. It's taller and it's more rounded, where the Sauterne, the side goes straight up. This one actually kind of cups in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I guess it could be like a large Sauterne. Some
Okay.
people refer to this as like a brandy sniffer, or a brandy where you could swirl your wine around just a little bit.
Rhine wine.
Well, thank you, Julie. Well, let's head out to our guest this evening.
Okay, thank you, David. For someone who's not known for collecting these kind of items, you sure had quite a collection to show us. So thank you for showing all of those. They're beautiful pieces, absolutely stunning. So with that, we'll start our Zoom and Tell. And I think we'll start off, since this is the first time I've seen him. Stu, we're going to give you the honors, and we are going to put, let me see, we're going to put Jeff and Mary on deck, please.
Okay, I'm gonna bring this down a little bit because I wore a blue shirt to see some of the pieces a little bit better, because some of my pieces are cut. First, and I'm not sure, David, you might prefer, I'm sorry, I didn't plan on coming to the meeting. I decided last minute, so some of the pieces on the inside are dusty. But David, I don't know, did you say when there's two ivy balls, there's one that has a flat bottom to it, so it was a vase that was put on, and then eventually, I guess they found out that it was going to be popular, so they have a blown vase without the flat bottom. And I don't know if there's any kind of indication as to when they stopped using the flat bottom.
Stu, to answer your question, the best I can say is the original ivy ball had the flat bottom, and the later version of the ivy ball was the perfect sphere. And I'm basing that on because the later colors like pink and smoke, pistachio, all of those are the perfect sphere. And the earlier colors like royal blue, carmine, forest green, amethyst, crystal, amber, those can be found with the flat base and the round one. So I don't know that there's any documentation that would say when they went from the true ivy vase sitting on the nude to the ivy ball sitting on the nude.
Okay, thank you. Because I have some of them, I do have both the carmine and the royal blue. I also have one, and I know that they had some that were paneled and some that weren't. All the crystal ones I've seen have had the panels in it, and my amber has the panels in it. I haven't seen a crystal or an amber that hasn't had the panels in it. But this one has, let me see if I can put it here. This one has an etching that was, or not an etching, a cut that was done by an outside company. And I think you and Jack might know a little bit more about the company. It was started with an L, I believe, but some of these were done by somebody. I think there were 8 of them or 10 of them that were done by an outside company, for somebody. I also have an example of, and most of these are for my smokers items, a cigarette holder that has the ashtray foot. And I know these came in several colors as well. And it came in full crystal as well as the satin for the crystal part.
Could you hold that up just a little bit so we can see the ashtray foot? It's
Sure.
yes.
Oh, the ashtray foot here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any cigarette boxes or ashtrays that have the ashtray foot. All of mine have a regular foot. This is the only piece that I have that has the ashtray foot, which would make sense because of the, I would think that the ashtray and the cigarette box would come in a pair, and this one came by itself because it's just a cigarette holder. This is a piece that I kept because I really like the cut on it. I don't know if you could see it. But David, I'm assuming this is the tall stem because any other ones are medium stems, but it also has a cut foot. I just think it looks sharp with the cutting on it. I'm not sure what the cutting is. I haven't looked it up yet, but I thought it looked good and it looks really pretty under the light and prisms.
Stu, that is
looks like
the
611.
611 cutting.
I'm sorry?
That is the 611 cutting that
Thank
David.
you. Thank you. Then I'll hold it up so you can see a little bit better. This cutting, I don't know whether this was done inside. I'm thinking this was done probably outside of the factory. It's a cigarette box. I'm going to show the lid separate, but it is a cutting. It really is pretty. It's very intricate. It has the cutting around the box. It has the cutting on the foot. And then the lid has a really intricate cutting with scalloping around the entire edge. And this just makes a really, really pretty piece. And the last piece I have, again, sorry for the dust, is the Caprice Ivy Ball. That's my examples for today.
Oh, thank you so much. Those were just fabulous. It's really interesting to see, again, all the differences between, the larger stems. And then I was trying to see if there was a square or triangle or the rectangular, but also the cuttings are so unique. So thank you for sharing those, Stu. And certainly it was nice to see that ashtray bottom, which is why I wanted to see it. You don't see that frequently. So I wanted to make sure I was thinking the same thing of what you were showing. So thank you so much for that. So next we're going to move over to Mary and Jeff. And then if Greg, I didn't see his name, he might have joined. If Greg's there, we'll put him on deck, please.
I love that cigarette holder. That was so cool. I've never seen one that shape in the. This is our most recent purchase that we I had seen a shop kind of locally had a Facebook page and they showed some of their cases and they had this in it. So I contacted them right away. So it's which we like because it's got the label on it too. So we're kind of suckers for pieces with labels. And then this was from last summer. And it's the Mandarin Gold seashell compo. That's it's just like 7 5/8 inch tall. And then the same that David showed there with the Crown Tuscan with the green bowl. We have one with the gold crystal bowl too. And then the cobalt. And then we did manage to find last year in our local shop a feather bloom goblet. And this one's got it's got the panels. And then the last piece we brought out was the Crown Tuscan ashtray. Regular foot. Oh, and the first piece, and I was curious if there was a way to tell what was imperial, because I thought that this might be imperial. This was the first one we ever got, was with the black stem. And I don't know if there's a way to tell imperials from Cambridges. But
Mary, there is one method that some people use. If you hold the cocktail up so that you're looking directly at the connection between the stem and the bowl, if you see a little wafer of black glass and that black wafer is completely floating, meaning you see this little disc of black and there's a significant amount of crystal glass below the disc, before it meets the stem. Most people believe that those are the Cambridge
Okay.
Okay,
ebony stems.
interesting. Okay.
Well, that
Mary,
answers,
I'm a believer in the floating disc, and I can see it from here. Yours looks like it's a Cambridge stem. The other thing is in the size of that bowl. If you compare it to your royal blue stem, and it should be the same size bowl, the imperial one is different.
Okay.
The imperial bowl is smaller.
Okay.
awesome.
Okay, cool.
Well, thanks for the help.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mary, I have a question.
Yeah.
Your ivy ball and the comport that you showed, are they the same size stem?
I didn't measure. Let's see. We'll hold them.
Let's see.
No, I think
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
this
you.
is taller.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. What's really interesting is you could really tell the difference in seeing how really spherical your Carmen is a ball, ivy ball is in comparison to the one Stu showed earlier, which really showed that flatter bottom. And just the way you
Yeah.
held it, you could really see the sphere, which was nice to see. So thank you for that. And I appreciate always everyone that shares. It's always so interesting to see what everyone has. So with that, we'll go on. Is Greg available? Did he join us?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Great. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see all, everybody. I don't have a big collection of news, but I've got a couple of favorites. I like roamers, and I have a topaz roamer from, I guess this is from the early 30s, or was this maybe through the 40s? I know the topaz has a sort of a sketchy production date, periods of production, but I'm guessing this is from the early years. But I don't groove a lot on Vaseline glass or that color, but something about the shape of the roamer and the base of the bowl, the color really collects down at the bottom, and it's very it does seem like it glows. So that's probably my favorite roamer. Probably my favorite cocktail is one this is Tahoe Blue with a satinized stem. And if I was going to have a set of 12 or 16 cocktails in one color, I think I would probably pick this one. I just think that's really a beautiful, beautiful color. And I think Tahoe Blue only came maybe in the brandies also. I think cocktails and brandies maybe were the colors of Tahoe Blue came in. And last, one of my very favorite pieces in my collection is this in forest green, the comport with Gloria on it. The comport came in cupped and flared, as David mentioned, and this is the cupped one, and she's a beauty. She's got a sister somewhere. I'd like to find her sister. That's what I got. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful examples. I really like how you showed how the collection of the glass and the Vaseline, and we've become so more knowledgeable being on the Zoom meetings about listening about, we're looking at the collection of glass, or this has a glow to it, or like the Tahoe Blue. I would like to hear the answer to that if it came in more than just the brandies. I'm sure we'll hear more. So thank you for sharing that. And yes, she's a beautiful one on that forest green. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Always appreciated. So next we are going to have Les, and then we are going to put Jack and Elaine on deck. So Les, are you available?
Sure. So I collect only nudes that are either decorated in some way or odd shapes. So this is an odd shaped one. It's actually a cocktail that wasn't finished. Normally it would have been cut around here, and then this would have been the knockoff that would have been removed to make the cocktail. And for some reason, this one was finished, it's smoothed on top, and it becomes an ivy ball. So it's just a unique conversation type piece. It is the unfinished cocktail is really what it is. There are there are quite a few different types of Crown Tuscan nudes that are gold encrusted. And David showed a Portia candelabrum. This is one of my favorite pieces. It's a cigarette box with chintz, and chintz isn't as common. It's got it on the foot as well as on the lid. And there's different people like different types of Crown Tuscan. I like mine really dirty. I like it dark and slaggy, and this one happens to be that way. Another decoration that'll pop up on a small number of the Crown Tuscan nudes is with the enamel decoration. So this has got the enamel black decoration. This one, rectangular shape here, it is on the tall nude. The lid is quite slaggy looking. These, I got some things that it's got the stamp on the bottom. Both of these do. So this suggests that this Crown Tuscan one was made very early in the production period, just like those that were gold encrusted. There's quite a few of the decorated, which I mean like etched nudes in the claret. So this is a claret, and it's got gold encrusted Diane on it. Not a common one. This isn't the only one by any means. There's more of them out there, but it's not a common one by any means. The rose point, I think the story is that there were a set of 8 of them in numerous sizes that came out in a furniture store in California, and a major dealer bought the collection, and they got shipped around the country, of course, and sold and resold many times. Another claret, this is from that early period that David spoke about when the nudes were first introduced in 1931. This is the claret with apple blossom, and the bowl is heather bloom. The nice thing about collecting only decorated nudes with enamel or an etching on them, they don't surface very often. So if it makes it a little easier in getting things to fit in the case if you're not adding something too often. Another one that's decorated, I think I'll finish up here with comports, 3 of them. So this is one with the Yale enamel decoration. I think of the sports series, the only nude that's popped up, the comport with is the Yale sport decoration. There's actually 2 of these. They became available in a short period of time from the collections, and I was able to add both of them to my collection. Another decorated piece, I think this is very uncommon to have a comport with a gold encrusted band on it. And it is a company etching band that's got a number, and very striking piece with that gold decoration on it. Why didn't they do more of that? Because it's so striking. There are some pieces, I think Alan's got a royal blue with silver overlay on it, which would be spectacular as well. But there's not many of the comports that have a decoration. And then my last piece, Julie, is this moonlight, what looks like moonlight blue, but there's no wreck with the tall nude. Cambridge did make during the reopen period, they made the comport, flared cup comport in moonlight blue with a medium-sized stem. This is the tall stem, and there's no record that Cambridge ever made this in moonlight blue with the tall stem. However, Imperial did. So we believe these were all made by Imperial, which it's a beautiful stem. As many people have said, when the Cambridge factory closed, many of the workers went to Imperial. Probably a lot of the formulas for the glass went to Imperial, and the tools went to Imperial. So maybe even the same craftsman making the same items. The interesting thing about these by Imperial, some of them have this satin star on top. Others have a satin stem. Some have the satin stem and the star. And others don't have any satin on them at all. So there's 4 different versions of these. Now, Imperial also made this same nude, supposedly, at least they advertised it, in a color called Verdi Green. I don't find that Verdi Green to be a very attractive green color that Imperial made, but I've never seen one of these nudes in that color. So maybe the buying public felt the same thing about that Verdi Green color and said, I think I'll take a blue one. So that's what I've got, Julie.
Okay, well, thank you, Les. And I just had a drool factor because I love chintz on Crown Tuscan. So of course I'm drooling heavily over the cigarette box.
Julie, can I ask Les a question?
You most certainly can.
Les, is the comport with the Yale, is that the only nude stem with the sports decoration on it?
Yeah, that's what I kind of muddled. That's what I tried to say, but I didn't say it very clearly. Yeah.
Okay.
And they both came out in the Cambridge area.
So you don't have the waters and the champagnes and stuff?
No. Like I said, they both came out of collections in the Cambridge area. So maybe they were just trial pieces that were made in the factory and never made it.
Okay, good clarification. Thank you.
Never made it to the university bookstore.
Well, yes, but what I find interesting is they also had Ohio State, and I would have guessed it would have come out in Ohio State over Yale if it was in Ohio. So that I find interesting that it's only on the it's only Yale over, you know, a local university that's 2 hours or less from Cambridge, Ohio. So very, very interesting points on those. So great question. So moving on again, thank you so much, because obviously all of us see these things that, you know, we've heard of, but we don't see them. And obviously Zoom allows us an opportunity to see glass that we wouldn't see every single day. So thank you so much, Les.
Julie?
Yes.
Yes, I was gonna say, maybe they figured only people that could afford to attend Yale could purchase these, and people that who attended Ohio State could not afford it.
Well, that's a thought. That's a thought, but you know, you never know. You never know what they were thinking over the factory, but I would have thought maybe someone would have decorated something for somebody, but you never know. Who knows? Again, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason about what was done at Cambridge, Ohio, I think. So, well, who knows? We'll never know what comes out until we see it again. So next I have Jack and Elaine, and then after Jack and Elaine will be Lyle.
Okay, thank you, Julie. I'm going to actually share screen here because I had a hard time thinking how I was going to show these. So I'm going to show some pictures if that's okay. So if you can allow me to share that.
Okay. Okay, you should be fine.
Okay, there we go. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What this is the table goblet. And when David was talking about cuttings, he said that in the 1937 circular letter, they actually offered the entire line with this cutting, which is the 611 cutting. That's also the same cutting that Stu showed his comport on. What's it? Is everybody seeing the goblet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Elaine somehow said she was not, just walked in, said she couldn't see the goblet. So, okay.
We're seeing the whole page.
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Yes, we're seeing the entire page.
Yeah, can we see one at a time?
Oh, I see. I show that that is it. Hang on a second.
No, you're wrong, Jack.
So what do you see now?
The whole page.
You still see the whole page.
So you have to exit sharing. I learned this the hard way. You have to exit sharing and blow it up and then share again.
Okay, all righty, let's and share again. Okay. How do I do that? Huh. See, the screen share thing's not on my thing. Oh, wait a minute. How about if I do that? So am I sharing? No, it's not up there, is it?
No.
Huh. Well, I don't know how to do that then.
Swallow your pride and ask your cat.
Yeah. Huh. Normally I don't have a problem doing this, but for some reason,
Do you have the pictures separately that you can just open the picture first, share, then you have to
yeah,
close
I
out?
have it opened up here, and but I can't.
Can you
I can't
double,
share.
can you double click on that particular picture?
See.
Ah, there it
There
is.
you go.
Oh, now, okay. So we're okay now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm not sure what I did that right, but okay. So, so this is the table goblet, and this is cut 611. And predominantly 611 was the cutting that was done.
Yeah, there's two COM ports and a clarity.
Except for Mike, were you saying something?
No, I just muted him so he can't say stuff.
Okay.
Oh, Lisa was just asking about those.
Okay. So, but even though it was, offered on the entire line, with the exception of the mint dish, which is interesting that they didn't offer this cutting on the mint dish because they could have cut the foot on it, but they didn't. But you only see it on just a few, like the goblets, the champagne, the claret, and the comport. So don't know what's happening with the rest of those. However, I do own this pair of candlesticks, and this cutting is 560. And it was cut on the base, as you see. Don't know of of any other ones that had this cutting on it. Don't know if it's they just did this one or not. But it is one of our most favorite things out of the cut candlestick collection. So,
Jack, that was in the 3034 catalog, both the candlesticks and the candelabra nudes. That's the only items.
Were they?
And it's the only reference to them is the catalog.
Okay. Okay. I did not know that. I haven't really looked at that closely. So great. Thank you. Okay. Next thing I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about, I'm going to show, we like the forest green nudes. So that's the biggest part of our collection on the nudes. And so I just wanted to show some of the ones how they decorated the table goblets. And there is one with the frosted stem. Here is a table goblet that has the gold bands on it. And for those of you who see that it has the heavier gold band at the top with a little thin gold line right underneath it. And then they also put the gold band on the foot. Another way they decorated them was with platinum bands. And again, this is the table goblet again. And it has the platinum band heavy on the top with the little thin one right underneath. And then also the foot has a platinum band around it. And these are known in other colors too as well, besides forest green. So another way, and Les, I think he just showed this one too on his comport, and this is the HD 619 with the gold band overlay on top. And it's interesting about this is that this was more of an early etch. It was done predominantly in the 1920s. In fact, it was I think introduced like in the late teens. So I think that this was probably right at the end of this line. It's interesting that they put it on a nude. So,
well, I would guess that though, Jack, because that's more of the Art Deco period, the period of opulence. So I would think in the 20s, you would probably see a little more of this kind of decoration just based on the Gilded Age and so forth.
Yeah, 95% of where you see this is on are on the opaques.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But the nudes weren't introduced till 1931.
right, right. So this had to be, I don't know if they were brought it back for for a few nudes or what was going on there. So, yeah. Wanted to show another, this is the cigarette holder with the ashtray foot. And also the bud vase in forest green too as well. And I think, Greg, there's your sister. So that's the flared comport etched Gloria. So, and here is the blown comport, and this has the satin stem on it. So, and I am looking for a lid. If anybody's got a lid out there, please contact me. I have not been able to find one. So, and here is a cigarette box, and this is has the Diane etching on it, and this they did very few of these in a few colors. I know that I think Les can probably attest they came in maybe royal blue, and I'm not sure what the other colors were, but there are a few colors that they did make those in. I wish they did be nice to do other etchings with that, but anyway, I'm really happy to have this one.
It should be in heather bloom, but one hasn't popped up yet. So.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out to everybody too is the difference in the candlesticks and candelabras. On your, I guess, I don't know if you're showing, well, I'll go from the left, is the candelabra, and that has the early 4-lock Beaubochet on it. And it also has the early small candle cup. I wonder if you notice the middle two candlesticks, if you can see the difference in the candle cups. The one on, well, I'm not sure if it's on my right, but I'll take that. The one that's next to the candelabra has the taller, more up and down shaped candle cup. The one to the right of that has the smaller, more V-shaped candlestick cup. It's my thinking, and I really haven't delved into this, but the first ones that were introduced and in the early original catalog pictures show this smaller V-shaped candlestick. The later versions had the more taller up and down, and they made all three, with the exception of the candelabra that I'm aware of, both in the pedal tops, and the middle two you see are both polished tops with the flatting on it, and then the candelabra. I don't know that they made the candelabra with the taller, older candles, or excuse me, later candlestick. Maybe some of you can maybe shed some light on that. So it's possible the Crown Tuscans ones were maybe with the taller straight up and down one.
And the Windsor blue.
And the Windsor blue. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of show that so you could see the different styles in the candlesticks. So, and the last one I wanted to show is the Epergne. This is one of our favorite things in our collection. So it's got the it's got the candelabra with the arm and the forest green vases. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jack. Those are just lovely pieces. Lovely, lovely pieces. I really like looking at those candle cups and how distinct they are. Like you said, you have the pedal top. You had one that seemed a little more elongated. And so it's really interesting to see those when you can actually see them side by side and see the subtle variations between them. So thank you so much for that.
There's been some conjecture and a lot of just interesting, fun discussion about why Cambridge did the polished flat tops. And, you know, when I first saw those, I thought maybe they did those because it would be perfect to sit the Epergne right on top. It would sit a little flatter on there, but I have no clue whether that was actually the case or not. So there's just, there's no documentation that we can find that, that says why Cambridge did one versus the other. So.
Okay, well, thank you. So next we're going to Lyle, because we know that Lyle likes his ladies. So Lyle, you're up.
Yes, ma'am. Are we on?
You are
Because
on.
this, everyone remembers their first. This is my first girl, and my theme tonight is friends. And most of these were put in my collection due to the efforts of friends. This was the first one, and I had a friend point it out at an antique auction with the words, "Hey, Lyle, you got one of those?" I did. First one. She had the bow on her, so that stays. I have something that I haven't seen yet tonight. I think this is a member of this club. I think she's a -40 in the 3011 group. And I have, of course, 2 candlesticks to go with her. But I talked the King of New Jersey out of this. And I'm not real sure he really wanted to sell it, but he did. And that's a Windsor blue. Very pretty, very pretty. I have a friend that I made first off with the club, and her name was Helen Klemko. I sent an article after our first convention experience, and she enjoyed my writing, and we became fast friends for that, if nothing else. And she and her husband decided that I should have these. Now, it's probably a dime store cutting. I think we sold these at Woolworth. And I was able to find like a little wine glass with the same cutting and a champagne with that cutting. And we got another goblet. So this one will show up at convention banquet sometime. And Mike Strebler likes to give me a hard time about this piece. I picked it up at an estate sale, but from across the room, that's a champagne. But over by the flour bin and sugar bin was this. And it becomes a very kind of hard to find sweetmeat. So when you look at this, it's much thicker glass here than a champagne would be to support this, evidently. But it survived clean. It's in good shape. I'm very proud of that one.
Actually, Lyle, it's right in the books when they were launching that sweetmeat that it is the sherbet, the champagne on the bottom.
Yeah, it's just fat glass.
Some are just thicker than others.
Well, they did that same thing with these crackles. They made thicker glass because this got a quick dunk in a bucket of water and then put back in the glory hole. And so they made them all thicker glass because something as thin as this one, I think, would disappear in shatter. Couldn't survive it. So these are usually a little heavier than any of the goblets. And I found your Diane cigarette box in crystal. And it shows up and it looks nice, but it needs light on it. And here's another piece that needs light on it. There's an etch there. Do you see it? Anybody see it? How about now? Is it showing up now?
Yes.
That's Portia. And it seems like such a waste, you know, from the outside, you can get a little bit of a shine off of it, but I mean, you drink out of it and you never see a thing. Is it, oh, look at that. And I have something from the cigarette line here. It's also Portia, but it's encrusted, and it's gold, it's pretty, and it's on pink, lovely stuff. Couple pieces for the next program in silver overlay. I'm not real sure what it is, but that was done by the same people who did this one. And the goose launched another part of the collection, I'm afraid. It's starting back here, Anyhow, I'm pretty sure they're the same. They've got the same ring at her feet, and the one on the foot, and the one around the basket. So I'm pretty sure they're the same people. And all these were pointed out or bird dogged or go, they got one over there, type of thing. By Les, you're guilty. You're in here too, buddy. And David Ray did that. Lynn, of course, Jack and Elaine, you're not blameless. This one is Vichy. I think that's a pretty thing. Mike, you like Vichy, don't you, Mr. Strebler? I think that's your favorite. That's a pretty piece.
Yes, Kyle, I like BC News.
Yeah. And I had one of those notorious GE Rose Point. It's a cocktail. And cocktails are seldom decorated. I don't know what they did wrong in their history, but this one got the treatment, and I'm very happy to have that. That was bird dogged by Mr. Thompson for me. So anyway, that's my ladies. That's a few. I got a couple, 300-400 of them here. So we'll stop now because David told me to, except for this. This I want to show you. One thing. These are 2 candlesticks. I bought them as a pair, but they aren't. This one is assembled. You can see where the stem was put on the foot and the bowl was put on the stem, blobbity blobbity. And she's fully formed and she's in pretty good shape. This one, this is all one piece. There is no seam where the pieces were assembled, and the arm is filled just like with the, what is that? The seashell line, full color, the mandarin, the green, and that sort of thing. And the bowl shape is a little different up here on top, evidently to let it come out of the mold. But I thought that was interesting. They were right there, yeah, pretty close to the same height. Okay, I'm done. Shut up, Lyle.
Well, thank you very much, because I was kind of waiting to see who was going to bring out the nude with the silver overlay. So I was concerned no one was going to show one. So I'm glad you did, because I know there were several that had beautiful decoration of silver overlay, which I'm a big silver overlay fan. So certainly I like to see those spectacular pieces. And obviously you have many in your collection. So thank you so much for sharing.
You still polishing, Julie?
I am still polishing. I got 2 months to go before we have the silver overlay program. So I figure a piece a day, I'm good.
Should be just enough.
Never ends. So with that said, does anyone else have anything to show before we move on to some photos that were sent to me? Okay. Since we don't have anyone, I am going to share my screen. Here we go. I got to go past to my, there we go. So hopefully everyone can see this. I'm going to blow these up, I hope. Let me see if this is going to work. Okay. Can we see these? Are they large? Okay. So Barbara, I believe these are from your collection.
I don't have many nudes. I just started, and I would like to say I didn't know that the cigarette holder came with a top. I got it without a top. So if anybody knows one with a ruby, has a ruby top separately, I would be very happy to buy it. I bought it without it. I was uneducated. I have this one. I have 2 of the, I don't know what you call them, candy dishes, comports on the left, and the cigarette box on the right. And then I had 2 more that I had.
Oh, wait, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Not mine.
There we go.
Okay, so the one on the left is, as you can see, it's an ashtray. The one on the right, I called a candlesticks, but it's really a candelabra, obviously, because it has the bobèche. And that's Rose Point, the bobèche. And I've also got that flying nude to go with it also. I didn't think that was part of the statuesque line, so I didn't include it. And that's really all I have. I think I have one or two more, but they're not in New York. They're in Florida. And I was able to get the one picture of the candelabra. I have two of those.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And I always think that's so beautiful when you have the bobèche with the crystals. I just think it really just sets off the statuesque line. It's just really gorgeous.
That's one of the first pieces of Cambridge glass I ever bought in
That was
Massachusetts.
your first one?
Yeah, it was the whole set.
Oh,
I was visiting Massachusetts in the mountains, and a woman had a house where she was selling out of her house, and I saw the three pieces, and I said I just had to have it, and that started me on buying. It's a sickness. It's okay.
well, we all have the same sickness, so you're fine. So, and I'm sure if you need more hints on buying nudes, obviously you see several people have several, so they can surely direct you in the proper location to see if you can't find a lid.
Thank you. And I've learned a lot from this Zoom tonight. I really have. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, you're welcome. So next, we're going to go on to Mr. Cohen, the Cohens, Sally.
Yes, Sally isn't here right now.
Oh, you don't have your hostess with the mostest today, Ellen?
Fortunately, no.
Okay, well, we'll let you talk about these lovely pieces.
Obviously, several have been shown, sweetmeats. I have 6 of them, actually. One in amber, one in amethyst, but they're in showcases in the basement that I could not get to them. And thank you, Julie, for giving me the suggestion of sending photographs, because the lids are very fragile. And I did not want to start carrying them from downstairs up 2 flights of stairs by myself. And Sally didn't want to do the same thing. Forest green on the extreme left has a Cambridge label. The royal blue next to it does not. There's a crystal one that I just bought last year, and I made to it, the red one, from one of my favorite Cambridge people, as well as show person. The amber and the amethyst, as I said, are in a basement in the back of showcases, so I couldn't bring them to be able to photograph. The only one that I don't have that David and Jack have documented is the heather bloom. I've read about it, but I haven't seen one. I'm sure somebody has them in their collection, most likely Mike. There is one other color that I found at the Miami Valley Cambridge Glass database, and it appears in several different sites within it. It's a peach blow in which the lid with that little handle is etched apple blossom. I've never seen one either, and I haven't found it in color, and I don't know if it was a one-off or what the situation was. If anybody knows of it or can send me a color picture, I'd be very happy to see them. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is really lovely because I just really enjoy seeing how vibrant the color is between the cobalt and the green and the carmine and the crystal. I think this is an excellent example of just, you know, the colors of Cambridge. We don't often see that. We see them in thicker pieces and thinner pieces, but here to me, it's just so elegant to see them side by side. And
Julie,
so, yes.
Can I comment a little bit on the sweetmeat?
Absolutely, Les.
So it turns out that the documents from the Cambridge factory company, when they launched the sweetmeat, it flat out says it is the champagne on the bottom. It is the champagne. It's the same piece. They just make a champagne, and the lid comes from either the 3495 puff box or the 3400 111 covered candy. So these can be marriages. They can be marriages. So the heather bloom likely is a marriage. And there's one out there we've heard of that's moonlight. Well, yeah, they made Moonlight during the reopen period, the champagne, and they made the Puff Box and the covered candy 3,400 earlier. So, you know, you can make a marriage for these sweetmeats. They didn't all necessarily come made this way. And so, Alan, the one that you mentioned with that etched top, certainly, almost certainly was a marriage, because the peach blow was never made in the champagne. It's only pink during the reopen period.
Well,
So just wanted to clarify that these can be marriages of that, and that's what they did at the factory, actually.
I see. Thank you. I appreciate that. However,
Julie?
one other comment.
Yeah, Julie, I have a comment for Alan. Alan, this is the most spectacular sweetmeat grouping I've ever seen. And I can't imagine what you got upstairs if the amethyst is in the basement.
Amethyst and amber, both in the basement.
And amber. I mean, I'd have those 6 right up in my big case. Those are great.
Thank you.
I've never seen heather bloom.
No, neither have I. But a number of years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, at a Connecticut show, there was a dealer that I had bought different things from at different times, and he had in his collection a pink one. He's the one that told me about the base being a champagne. That's the first I ever heard of that. And I tried to get it from him, and he would not give it up. I don't know whatever happened to it. But it was a Connecticut, I think Northern Connecticut glass show.
But again, the bottom would have been reopened pink,
Right.
and the lid would have been peach blow.
Right.
But that's fine, no problem.
And Les, one other thing, I found a tally-ho piece that had this lid on it. And I think I researched it, and it was actually a factory piece, but it was that, so that would be the 3rd piece that has this lid.
And actually, Alan, the amber one of these is maybe one of the hardest to find. So amber isn't a desirable color by everyone, but it's actually the sweetmeat's very hard to find.
Believe it or not, that's the first one I added to my collection.
You're a lucky guy, Alan.
Well, these are certainly outstanding and beautiful, just as the rest of the pieces that have been shown tonight. So I really like how interesting it is. Like you said, it's a marriage, but the 3,400, you know, just the keyhole of the handle and just that little subtle design on the top of the lid really brings out, I think, the color, and also brings out just the elegance of the glass in so many ways. So thank you so much for sharing this, and it's so much appreciated. And maybe we can sneak in a picture of the other 2 at some point when we write this up in the in usually the crystal ball. So maybe if you can get to them sometime, Alan, you can send us some more photos. So thank you again for sharing.
Can we ask a question with a show and tell, sort of?
Absolutely.
You know, we're talking about the sweetmeats, right? And this is the bottom of my sweetmeat, right?
Wait a minute.
I mean, I have the lid for it, right? What I noticed on you're talking about, it's a marriage between a champagne and a lid, right? But if you noticed here on the champagne, let's see if you can see it. There's a lip that goes in on this sweetmeat. It literally comes in and turns in. So if you look at all the pictures here, you see that ring right there. I don't know if you can see it here, that clear, but there's literally a lip in it. If you try to drink out of it, you really, and I tried it, you can't really drink out of it because the lip curls inward, just like that.
Yeah. All of mine had the same thing, but they weren't drinking.
I'm gonna show you something.
So the question is,
not for drinking.
are they a champagne that is finished differently than a drinking champagne? I think he's bringing another one.
See, now, this is my amethyst. Here's the lid.
Here, I'll hold it.
And I believe this is for sure champagne because the lip doesn't curl in. It's straight out. You can drink out of this all day long. It doesn't bother you. But on the blue one, you put your lip to it, you won't drink out of it because it'll come out of your mouth. So I'm wondering if this isn't truly a sweetmeat and was made this way, or in the earlier years or whatever, when they started producing it, if they did the champagne with the lid, because obviously I have two pieces that are different with a sweetmeat lid. So I want to know if those, like you're showing, Alan, or an original saying that that's what the sweetmeat is. And I mean, I know what y'all talking about, that this definitely is a marriage, you know. And if the catalog says that's how they made it, then that's fine. That's good. But I just noticed a difference between the two that I had, and that's what I've always questioned, is you drink out of this one for sure, but the other sweetmeat bottom, you can't drink out of that.
And they're not even,
It's not for drinking.
and they're
Yeah.
not even the same size.
Lynn will probably never know the answer to that one, because I know what you're saying. April commented, it seems like it's finished somewhat differently. And they may have
That's what I'm getting at.
they may have done that on some, but again, when they created the sweetmeat, the order went in that it is the champagne bottom. So would they have consistently finished it somewhat differently? We don't know. And we
Okay,
probably never will.
You know, that's just a difference that I noticed. I mean, I know that the sweetmeat you don't drink out of, but I know the champagne you do. You know, and that was the difference that I was going, well, gee, okay, that was just a difference in what I was seeing. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's always good to pick up these little subtleties so that when we're out shopping, that we can notice the differences. So thank you for that. And we're going to move on. Mr. Strebler, I believe these may look familiar to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I want to start off with the David Ray disclaimer and say that we are not nude stem collectors. We did start out with nude stems. Our very first piece we ever bought was the cupped comport. And that was, gosh, over 40 years ago. And I kept picking them up because at the time, before there was eBay, these were rarer than hen's teeth. So we bought them whenever we saw them. And before you know it, our collection got kind of out of control. But it is finished. The nude stem collection, Royal Blue nude stem. And that's pretty much all we collected was Royal Blue nudes. And the rule was, there had to be a rule, was that no more than 4 of drinking vessels and 1 each of everything else we could find. And to run across the top and the back are cocktails. To the right are the crystals, left are crystal stems, to the right are the crown and the back. And then in front of those to the left are the brandies, to the right are the true cordial, we call them. If we move down to the next level in the middle, the sweetmeat to me is I forgot up top, there's a flying lady bowl, and the candelabras. Jack, if you notice, that's the deep bowl on the candelabras. And so when we move down to the next one, on the flanks, you see the ivy balls. And we always laugh about the flat bottom. Somebody put one on eBay and said, it's the rare flat bottom ivy bowl. So you can see there's a flat one and then a round one on the other end. To the back are the tulip cocktails and the V cocktails. Moving down below that, on the left is the hawks. On the right are the roamers. Julie, can you move down a little bit?
Is that what you're looking for?
One more up, one shelf up.
Oh, 1 shelf up. Oh, I cut it into 2 pictures. So you'll have to.
Well, we'll do this one then.
Okay.
Okay, so that was
There we go.
Okay. In the back are the banquet goblets. And to the front of the banquet goblets in the middle is the bud vase. The bud vase is pretty tough to find, so I gave that front and center. And the candlesticks are petal tops. I guess it's the short bowl, but I'm not going to try and collect every candlestick in short and long bowls. Next shelf, Julie. Those must be tables in the back. On the left are the sauternes. On the right are the clarets. In the center would be the wines. And the candlesticks look like they're the petal tops. So the ones above on the last shelf must have been the polished tops. Then we have the mint dish in the front. And the bottom shelf is in the corners in the back would be the flared comport and the cup comport and the 4 champagnes. And in the middle are the smokers items. And up front, we see the cigarette holder. I guess that's an ashtray foot. The center is the short covered cigarette box. On the other side is the ashtray. And in the back are the 2 large cigarette boxes. And that's the only duplication I have, but I have a glass collector friend that I looked at his list and he doesn't have one, so it may go to him to get it down to, so I don't violate the rule. But that's our royal blue collection. Like I say, I couldn't believe one day when it was just finished. Next picture, Julie. Okay, up top is the our Carmen Flying Lady. And these are the candlesticks, the Carmen candelabras, but they have the short bowl. And there's a couple of brandies and a cordial there just because I had no place else to put them. And lining that shelf is banquet goblets. I'm fond of banquet goblets, but like I say, I'm not a nude collector as such. Down below in the back corner, there's a water goblet, and I'll let Lisa talk to you about that if you, and that's the end of my pictures. I got a couple things to show you. Lisa's going to tell you about the Carmen water.
Okay.
If you unshare the picture, Jewel.
Okay, let me unshare.
There's the camera. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the
We don't see you yet.
oh, okay. That's all
You
right.
see
I
it?
don't need to be seen, but the pieces can be seen. But this is
Can you hear her, Julie?
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah, this one's got a label on it, and it's got 2 labels on it. It's got one of the foil labels, but it also has an original, I guess you would call that a factory label.
Showroom label.
Showroom label. 3011/2 Carmen Lady Figure Line Goblet, $42. That's 42 per dozen. Made in the USA, the Cambridge Glass Company. So it's always cool when they have those kinds of things on it. So yeah, she's a beauty.
Okay, and then I had for Lyle, David asked me to bring this collection. Okay, so
What?
this would be the Vichy
Oh, yes, yes.
water. And this would be the Vichy champagne.
Nice. Very nice.
Vichy claret. Yeah, they're all optic.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Vichy wine, but this one is not optic for some reason. The wine is not.
Mine isn't either.
Okay, then we have a Vichy Hock. And Greg had this one, I think somebody had this one, a VC Romer. Now, I do believe that in my travels, I have seen a VC Brandy somewhere. But I do not own such a thing. But I guess when I started VC, I wouldn't have believed that we would have found that many of them, but there's a few out there. And then I have one final piece that I wanted to show, and I've shown it before to people. So if you've seen it before, that's. But this is a royal blue banquet with the band that Jack has on his green one, and it's got a gold trim on the foot. So we have a couple other little things. We have the Windsor Flying Lady Bowl with the candelabras, candlesticks. We do collect some of the. I have a very small banquet goblet collection, but I gave up when David, who doesn't collect nudes, came up with the Forest Green Gloria. And then somebody else came out with Rose Point golden crusted Rose Point banquet goblets. So I gave up on that. And I have a very small collection of frosted clarets. So that's what I had to share tonight.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, obviously the blue is stunning when you have it all together, and such a wonderful example of showing the heights, the different looks, and then obviously showing all of them with the V, the roamers, all the little pieces. So it's really nice to see them side by side, so you can really see the subtle nuances between all the different lines and the stems, and then also with the candlesticks and the flying lady bowl. So obviously, to see them all together is just wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Julie.
Yep. And we're going to go back, and I'm going to share a little bit more here. I'm going to share screen. Let me see. Oh, I just have to push. There we go. Let me go back. I got to share. There we go. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so we're going to slide through these. Let me go down to here. Let's see if I can get this to play. You can see this, right? There we go. I got to move everybody. That's why I probably can't get it to go where I want it to go. There we go. So the last one that we have to share, and I am going to let Sue discuss these. Sue Cameron, if you want to pipe in.
Sure, I'd be glad to. These are photographs sent, or a photograph sent from our son-in-law again. We thought it was really interesting to show the 3 different sizes of the nudes in one photograph. He has the candlesticks, and of course he's got the flying lady bowl that goes with it, and the 2 little glasses, stems, and the ivy ball in the center. But that's a good comparison, showing the 3 different sizes of the nudes. So
yes, it is. And I think it's really nice here, because we can really look at what David was talking about when we see them all together. So if we look at the smaller ones, yes, you can kind of see the triangle. And then when we see the medium heights, we can see the square and the ivy ball, and then certainly more of the rectangular and the taller candlesticks. So I think this is an excellent way and representation, to go back to what David was saying, of how we can identify the heights.
Go back in here.
Yeah.
Right. So really, really nice. And again, I know that, I have a couple of the crown with the gold crystal on top. So it's always nice to see those. And I think I've seen several of these, out and about, but, I had never really thought about the heights and then looking for these certain little things. Yeah. So I think that's just wonderful. Let me see if I have it.
After tonight, I think that we'll all be more aware of the different sizes of the ladies when we come across them.
Yes, we will. So I'm going to come back and stop share. And So are there any other questions, or are there any other things that we need to discuss on the Statuesque line? I mean, we have so many nice collectors here online that if you have a question, now's the time to ask. Any questions?
Was not a question, just a comment for Alan. I think the dealer that he met at a Connecticut show was Larry Thompson, who is now deceased. But his wife is still alive, and I think she still has his collection.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was deceased. Yeah, I liked him very much.
Yeah, good guy, good friend of mine.
Right.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions before we
Ju-
turn it back over to, oh, go
Julie, I
ahead.
got one comment. One thing that you got to watch with nude stems, and it's hard to believe this, but you got to watch for glued tops, where somebody's taken a piece off a common stem and glued it onto a nude stem. And there's an easy way to figure it out. If you have a $10 black light and you shine it on the connector between the crystal stem and the bowl, the glue shows up almost a bright yellow or bright green color, at least the ones that I've seen. So if you see a really unusual stem, or you got questions about one that you have, take a black light to it and check that joint. And normally nobody glued together anything that was common. So just that's my watch out on nude stems.
Very good. There was a dealer in Texas who did that famous.
Yes, and I think we had this commentary before about this, but I think it's an excellent reminder to those of us that are out and about. And, you know, after we've had these Zoom meetings, I now tend to have this little pocket black light where I go. And so now when I'm looking for certain things, I just have a little small one that I carry with me. So I think that's an excellent way to, again, illustrate how there are some fakes out there and people that are trying to kind of pass off some things that aren't quite original. So thanks for bringing that back up, Mike. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure everyone on the call appreciates you having that comment as well.
And one more thing, and David Ray, I don't know if you're still on here, but the question about the color of the nude stems, I believe David has one with a green nude stem.
What he said, yeah.
Yes, I do have a pair of those, and I don't know.
But that wasn't
story
rare
is
enough
on
to
that.
bring up, David.
That's we can talk about that all you want, Mike.
One thing else I wanted to mention that might be of interest, since we're talking about black lights, Sue Cameron's showed those two cocktails, and I believe those were actually Mandarin Gold. But sometimes it's tough to tell the difference between Mandarin Gold and Gold Cristal because they put them both on those Crown Tuscan stems. But there is a very easy way to tell, and that is with the black light. Just shine it on the bowl. The Gold Cristal will fluoresce like crazy, and the Mandarin Gold not at all. So that's a very easy way to distinguish between the two. So.
And that's very good to know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So again, we learned so much on Zoom that we now can take back with us on our shopping trip. So it's excellent. But this obviously has been a very popular program because we are almost at the 2-hour mark. So I think we're going to let David close it up. And again, I want to thank everyone so much for showing and sharing what you have at home. I mean, we've seen some exquisite pieces tonight. And I mean, things that, you know, I drool over every single day. And I'm always like, well, I wonder if I would ever see this. And so Zoom and Tell is a great way to see some of these pieces that, you know, you may never see at a show. You may never see, you know, anywhere on your travels. So I think it's just wonderful. So David, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Julie. It's been a great evening, and it's never gets old looking at the Cambridge glass and seeing what other people have. And again, just to echo what Julie said, we really appreciate those who are willing to share their pieces, because that's really what this event is all about. As I mentioned earlier, next month, Les Hansen's going to be leading our program on silver overlays. And again, just to remember, these are silver decorations applied to Cambridge glass by other companies like Rockwell or Silver City or the Passe Pearsall. Those companies, we know Cambridge did some platinum trim. We know they did maybe some white gold decorations. That's not what the program's going to be about. It's going to be about glassware purchased by silver companies, and that silver decoration was applied outside of the Cambridge glass factory. So that should be a knockout program, because some companies did some outstanding silver work on Cambridge glass. So that should be a fantastic program. So Julie, that's all I have this evening, and we'll see a few people at the auction, and convention registrations are out. So put a plug in for attending convention this summer to celebrate the 50th anniversary of NCC.
Yes, and thank you for that reminder, David. And again, for those of you that are coming to convention, I just want to remind you, and even if you're coming to the auction, the hotel room rate is good for the entire year. So if you're coming to either event and you're looking for a hotel room, look in this month's crystal ball and you'll see what those rates are and the telephone numbers. So I like it. The rooms are cheaper, which means I have more money to spend at the auction and I have more money to spend at convention. So that's wonderful. And again, any questions that you have, certainly after we're done here tonight, we're all available, email friends, call friends on the phone. So it's a great way, again, to just share what you have and the knowledge that's available through all of our membership. So with that, I don't have anything else. And again, I thank everyone for joining us. It's always wonderful. And thanks for everyone sticking around. It's almost 2 hours now, but the Zoom and Tell is available. And once we get it down off the cloud, we can send it for you for further reviewing or review, or if you just want to, like me, drool over the glass all over again. So thanks, everyone, and have a good evening. And we hope to see you next month.
Thank you.